In a quiet town in Kentucky, a family moved into an old Victorian house, hoping for a fresh start. The house was charming, with its ornate wooden staircases, stained glass windows, and sprawling garden. However, strange things began happening almost immediately. At night, they would hear soft footsteps in the upstairs hallway, even when no one was there. Sometimes the sound of faint sobbing echoed through the walls, stopping just as abruptly as it started. Soon, they started seeing a woman in a bright yellow dress. She would appear at the same window every evening, gazing longingly at the road outside. The family initially thought it was a neighbor peeking in, until they realized she was inside the house. One night, the father mustered the courage to approach her. As he climbed the stairs, the air grew colder, and a strange pressure filled the room. When he reached the top, she turned to face him, her eyes brimming with sadness, and then vanished into thin air. The family later learned from neighbors that the house had a tragic history. In the 1930s, a young bride named Eleanor had been left waiting at the altar. Heartbroken and humiliated, she leapt from the very window where she was often seen. Despite numerous attempts to cleanse the house with rituals and blessings, the ghostly bride remained, as if eternally waiting for her lost love to return. Her presence was not malevolent, but her sorrow weighed heavily on the family. They eventually moved out, leaving behind the house and Eleanor to her endless vigil. Late one stormy night, a truck driver named Sam was traveling through the desolate highways of Nebraska. The rain poured so hard that visibility was near zero, and lightning streaked across the sky like jagged cracks. Sam was tired, but determined to make his delivery on time. As he drove through the winding roads, he spotted a young woman standing by the road, drenched and shivering. She wore an old-fashioned dress, the kind you'd see in vintage photographs. Feeling sorry for her, Sam stopped and offered her a ride. The woman climbed into the truck, barely speaking, but she seemed grateful. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, and her hands trembled as she gave him directions to a small farmhouse at the edge of a cornfield. Sam tried to make small talk, but her responses were brief and distant. When they arrived, she softly said, "Thank you," and exited the truck. But as soon as Sam looked back, at a hospital in Pennsylvania, room 318 was notorious among the staff and patients. Nurses avoided assigning it unless absolutely necessary, and patients often asked to be moved after spending just one night there. Those who stayed in the room described an unsettling presence. Many reported seeing a dark shadow lingering in the corner, its form undefined but undeniably menacing. One patient, a retired teacher named Mrs. Carter, said she woke up in the middle of the night to find the shadow standing at the foot of her bed. Its presence was overwhelming, and though it had no face, she felt it staring directly into her soul. She tried to scream, but her voice was paralyzed. Another patient, a young man recovering from surgery, claimed the shadow whispered his name, its voice cold and distant. A nurse who had worked there for years reluctantly shared the room's dark history. Decades ago, a man had been brought in after a horrific car accident. Despite the doctor's efforts, he passed away in room 318. His death was violent and filled with anguish, and some believe his restless spirit remains, unable to move on. Attempts to bless the room had failed, and even skeptics admitted feeling uneasy when they stepped inside. The shadow's presence was a chilling reminder of the hospital's unexplainable mysteries.